rehab schedule, and we have Max Unger, who has been practicing on a limited basis with the team, but he may see some preseason action against the Texans, or he may not. We don't know. Have you heard anything, Bob?
I haven't heard other than a couple clips, and we all know Coach Payton likes to play it close to the vest. I kind of expect to see Unger get some snaps. Armstead, in my opinion, it's way too early to speculate on any kind of return. I mean, he's what, a month and a half outside of the labrum injury, and I mean those things you can have such an easy setback. I think it's from the sounds of things anyway. It doesn't sound like he's going to miss the season like a lot of us first thought. So that's certainly encouraging. Unger, they've been right on track with all along. They said that he was going to be ready for the season opener. He's ready a couple weeks ahead of time. So we should see him on the field for this dress rehearsal against the Texans. And given the defense that Houston has, I would really like to see this offensive line as fully intact as we can. Obviously, Armstead won't be in there. But everybody else, to see Unger get a few series with Breeze and the rest of the starters, I'm anxious to see that. So, yeah, it's considering what we saw from the backup centers early in camp, the fact that Unger has been well ahead of schedule is really encouraging because I think the rest of these guys, not the backups, but the rest of these guys that are going to start the season have been pretty solid. So Unger is going to be the key.
Yeah, definitely. But our number one draft pick has been doing very, very well. I don't think they need to rush Armstead if we don't need to have him immediately out there. The young kid, Barry, looks like he's proven himself. But this week, he's up against some very, very talented pass rushers. You have J.J. Watt. You have Clowney. And the man, I love his last name more than anything else, Merciless. As a defensive player, what better name to have? I know these guys here at Houston Texans very well. I watch them all the time here in Houston. I know this defense is really a really good defensive line. They're missing some holes in their defensive backfield this year. I don't think they're going to be as dominant as they were last season. But, guys, what do you think and how do you think Streif and the young kid is going to really handle the pass rush of the Texans? You first, Bear.
Yeah, well, maybe not well. We'll see. Look, we've seen in the past, and you alluded to it, Zach Streif get tossed around like a rag doll by J.J. Watt. And you remember when I wrote for that previous website that Bob and I wrote for?
Yeah, that was bad last year.
Zach Streif into submission over that performance. Because if you take away that one performance, Zach Streif's been an all-pro right tackle. I mean, he's been one of the best right tackles in the game, minus that performance. When you throw that performance in there, then it kind of takes a little of the bloom off the rose, so to speak, because in that game, he got embarrassed, badly embarrassed. And, of course, it's J.J. Watt. Okay, so, before I really bag on Zach Streif really hard, let's not forget who that was. That was J.J. Watt. That wasn't some guy off the street, So J.J. Watt, we're talking about the NFL defensive, multiple NFL Defensive Player of the Year award winner. So, it is what it is. But I want to see Ramczyk. That's what I'm looking for because I guarantee you, Whitney Merciless is going to come off that outside edge and is going to test him. You might even see them move Watt, because it's not unprecedented for the Texans to take Watt and move him all along the defensive line. He doesn't just have to line up at one particular spot over Streif. They might stick him on the other side and have him line up right in front of Ramczyk just to test the rookie out, just because they can, and not because they're picking on anybody or anything, just to test him out, just because it's preseason, and you want to see what your guys can do, you want to see what their guys can do. So, and Clowney, same thing. Matter of fact, we might even see Ramczyk and Clowney end up in a few one-on-ones, in a few certain situations. So, I want to see how the rookie handles it, because if you can handle the Texans, when I say handle it, I don't mean that he's going to win every battle. I mean, when he's going up against guys of this caliber, he's going to lose a few. He lost a few against the Chargers, but he also won a few. And of course, on the touchdown to Kamara, that was one that he won very notably. It led to a touchdown. So he's got all talent in the world. With University of Wisconsin, has a reputation for turning out outstanding offensive linemen and defensive linemen. Because Watt is one of them. Since we're talking about Wisconsin players, J.J. Watt is obviously one. So they have quite the reputation for line play on both sides of the ball, and Ramczyk is another prime example of that type of player that those guys turn out year in and year out. And I think he's going to be an all-pro. I think he's going to in either tackle position, whether he goes back to the right side and takes over for Strief when Strief retires, or if they just make him kind of a jack-of-all-trades guy, kind of like Pete is right now, and just line him up wherever. I just think if he finds a home at one particular spot, which I expect it to be right tackle when Strief's retired, that he'll be an all-pro. He'll be a perennial all-pro. He's that good. So,
and that brings up a good point, man. What do you do when Armstead gets healthy, right? It may be the middle of the season. Do you just keep him on the bench until he's needed to be thrust into action, or
kind of like where you go with the hot hand, so to speak?
Right.
I think if Ramczyk is still playing good, if he's still doing an admirable or very capable job, right when Armstead is activated and is ready to return, I think they might leave him in there, and then it just depends on the situation. If Strief's hurt, or God forbid something happens to Strief, or just whatever, or they want they might just say, look, Armstead's back, he's our guy. A starter never loses his job because of an injury. We'll just stick Armstead back in there and just let Ramczyk float, so to speak, and just plug him in where we need him at. So okay. I will just have to see how that plays out. I think it'll be based on the particular situation when that time comes, which I know they didn't allude to it, but I'm seeing information here that says, and this is just out of Armstead's own words that he had in an interview with Rod Walker of the New Orleans Advocate, where he told Rod Walker, he didn't say it in so many words, but Rod Walker says it could put him back in uniform as early as October, which is a lot sooner than the end of November, early December. So that's significant. I mean, you're talking, a month and a half quicker than they anticipated. So we'll see. It's early yet to make those kind of determinations. And look, Armstead might just be feeling so good about his rehab that he's not being realistic. So I've had surgeries before where I thought, man, I'm bouncing around months afterwards, and then something happens and you realize, whoa, I better take it easy. So we'll see.
It sounds like to me, Barry, what you say
back in October, that's phenomenal. So.
It sounds like to me, Barry, what you said is after those surgeries, reality hit.
Yeah, big time.
The pain hit. Yeah. All right, guys. Let's kind of talk about the Texans game right quick. I want to ask you a couple of quick questions and get your quick thoughts on these guys. The Texans still have some question marks when it comes to their offensive line. And Tom Savage, I know he's competing with Deshaun Watson. Looked very, very good against the New England Patriots last week, as well as the first game of the preseason. It looks like if he performs well against the New Orleans Saints, it will be his team taken into the opener for the Houston Texans. Now, knowing that if you're the New Orleans Saints and Dennis Allen, what do you do when you get on the field the first time against those guys, Bob?
I blitz the hell out of them. I do. Like you said, they are not very challenged. They're challenged along the offensive line. Probably not as much, say, as the Chargers were, but they definitely have some questions along there. No matter which quarterback lines up, whether it's Watson, who is going to be a very raw and inexperienced rookie, or Savage. Savage has been in the league a couple of years, but you can count on one hand, I think, the number of times he's actually started a game in the regular season. So
one finger really is one. Bob is really one finger, if I recall.
I was being generous. I couldn't remember that juggling act that they played with Osweiler last year. I didn't remember who else. It was
pretty bad.
Brock in and out, but
yeah, it was bad. Go ahead.
but I mean, no matter who it is, it's going to be an inexperienced guy back at quarterback. We have seen some very, very good things out of the Saints front seven, both first team and potential second team. So I want to continue to see that. We know that Dennis Allen likes to play an aggressive style. So if this is going to be a dress rehearsal for what your offense and defensive game plans are going to be for the regular season, I say you blitz the heck out of them. You leave your cornerbacks in one-on-one coverage with only a little bit of safety help. Let those guys roam around because that's the style of defense we want to see out of these guys anyway. So that's exactly what I'd come out of the locker room blitzing.
Yeah. The only concern I have is you can't blitz too much against Deshaun Watson, man. And if anything was telling last week is when the Saints overcommitted and allowed the Chargers quarterback to be able to pick up a couple of first downs on them. So if the Saints are going to do that, Savage is not a highly mobile guy, but he still is a little bit mobile. So the Saints need to really have somebody in that spy position, so to speak, to make sure that Savage is not going to sneak out if the Saints aren't able to get to him and open up some lanes as a result. Let's talk about this. When we talk about some of the pass rushers on the New Orleans Saints, Muhammad again registered, another 1.5 sacks against the Chargers. We still haven't seen much with Hendricks, but do you think this is the game that we see a little bit more from that kid, knowing that he was one of our top draft picks?
Well, I think you're going to see him play a lot more in this game. I don't remember who it was. It might have been Josh Katzenstein, maybe, of the Tuskegee that had something on him today and mentioned that we probably will see a little bit more of Hendrickson in the joint practice tomorrow and then in the game Saturday night. He's been hurt, nursing a little nagging injury, and it just came back to practice. And I believe it was today. I believe that he had a really good day at practice. So we'll see how that turns out. But look, to me, what's intriguing is Muhammad, because I think the Saints originally intended that maybe they were going to try to sneak him through on the practice squad. Mm-hmm. And there ain't no way you're going to get that kid and release him and then sneak him back in on the practice squad. That ain't happening, son. That kid is a diamond in the rough. The Saints may have hit another home run, so to speak, on a NFL draft gem, or undiscovered, unpolished gem, whatever draft terminology you want to use. We all questioned the pick when it happened. Kyle, I know you've always kind of liked the kid and been high on him. I didn't have a problem with the pick because it's the 6th round, and at that point it's kind of a crapshoot anyway. But, you know, he did have the baggage and the issues that he had at Miami, but the talent, the raw talent that this kid had,